very shortly after that, was on a cocaine binge at my house, and I laid in bed and my heart was racing, and I'd probably done an entire 8 ball to myself, and I was just kind of I thought maybe this was just gonna be the end of it for me. I was actually terrified. I was really terrified to even lay there. I had realized that I had let these substances overcome me. I grew up with good morals, and all of a sudden I was a junkie in that respect. Not obviously as much of a junkie as some other people, but in my world, it was devastating to look at myself and see that I had gone there.
Holics.com, in partnership with Heart Support and the Global Recovery Initiatives Foundation, is proud to present High Notes, a podcast about addiction and recovery in the music industry. I'm your host, James Shotwell. My guest today is Heidi Shepherd. Heidi is the co-vocalist and co-founding member of Butcher Babies, one of America's premier hard rock bands. The group's latest single, Last Dance, is available now on all streaming platforms. Heidi is one of the most recognizable people in hard rock, but many fans still don't know her story. Today, she's going to tell us about her previous cocaine use and how it almost led her down a dangerous path. But thankfully, she found her band, and in doing so, forged a community that has taken the world by storm. But my first question is just how long she's been sober.
Well, I have been sober from hard drugs 12 years now. The thing is like, there was a time in my life where cocaine really took over and it became my life. What saved me really was my band and my dedication to actually trying to sound good in the band. But I'll enjoy a cocktail every now and again, but it's not something that dominates my life like it did in the past. So I guess you could say I'm not fully sober in that respect. However, hard drugs are not a part of my life. I don't even smoke marijuana. So I'll just enjoy a cocktail every now and again.
I want to make it clear from the jump that this is perfectly acceptable. We at High Notes preach moderation as much as we do sobriety. As we've said before, and we will no doubt say again, everyone reacts to things differently. One drink in moderation may be fine for some people, but for others, it is the start of a slippery slope, and knowing what's right for you is what matters most. I asked Heidi if she would take me back to the beginning of her story, so that we could learn how cocaine became a part of her life.
Well, I grew up Mormon, and so drinking was against the religion I grew up in. So I didn't even touch alcohol till I was 22 years old and done with school. And it was just, I left the religion that I was in, and I was like, I'm going to explore life. And I did. I went a little too ham, I guess. But I look back at it now, and it was all lessons that I needed to learn at the time. I didn't get those rebellious teenage years, I guess, that some people may have. And so I just explored in my early 20s. And I'm sure that a lot of people can attest to that as well. I moved to Los Angeles around 22, and I kind of just fell into an interesting crowd. I used to go to clubs with Paris Hilton and Kim Kardashian and all that way back in the day when, Tara Reid was there. It was just a big party situation. And I remember sitting at a table and I was passed strawberry flavored cocaine. Bizarre, right? Lifestyles of the rich and the famous, I guess. And I was there to try everything and just do everything. I started going to raves and I fell deep into ecstasy. And the problem with ecstasy is that it depletes all of your serotonin, and even if you try to get high and you take the drugs the next day, your body hasn't replenished that serotonin. So I would just try it. Even if the pills weren't going to work, I was just still going to try it, just try and get that going for me. And I remember sitting at an after party and everyone was just high out of their minds, and this was after a rave, and a kid next to me, he had this giant mohawk, and he did a shot of Nos, I think is what it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was, and he completely passed out. I thought he died, and I looked around me, and it was almost a snap back to reality. I looked around, and I was just around a bunch of, drug addict deadbeats. It was light outside, but they had movie theater curtains covering the windows. I looked around and I thought, I can't believe this is my life. What have I let this come to? It was kind of in that moment where I just decided I didn't want to do ecstasy anymore. I felt dumb. Every single day, I felt like I was becoming dumb and dumber. And it just was, it was kind of a wake up call seeing that kid next to me, which I thought he was dying, but he had just passed out and came to. Very shortly after that, was on a cocaine binge at my house, and I laid in bed and my heart was racing, and I'd probably done an entire 8 ball to myself, and I was just kind of, I thought maybe this was just going to be the end of it for me. I was actually terrified. I was really terrified to even lay there. I had realized that I had let these substances overcome me. I grew up with good morals, and all of a sudden I was a junkie in that respect. Not obviously as much of a junkie as some other people, but in my world, it was devastating to look at myself and see that I had gone there. As the band started to take off and started to do better, yeah, I couldn't do some cocaine and sing correctly. It didn't serve me. And as I stated, yeah, it did kind of save me in a way to be like, okay, this is the final straw. This is the thing that's really going to kick this habit off for me. I stopped doing that before I we even did our first tour. I stopped doing it because I knew that it was going to ruin this beautiful dream that I had been dreaming of my entire life. My whole life, I wanted to do what I'm doing right now. And I knew that I would be ruining myself over a substance. And my band members and everything, everyone was really supportive in this not being a habit, obviously. So I'm very lucky that I had the support of my friends in that as well.
Heidi has already told us about what happened in her life immediately before she chose to get clean, but I wanted to know about the circle of people she ran with. Were other people in her life concerned? Had anyone asked her whether or not she thought about quitting before that moment? Were there people rooting for her that she would make the decision to get sober on her own time?
That's the thing. Either like a lot of people didn't know that it was as bad as it was. And also I one of my best friends at the time, her boyfriend was my drug dealer. So, that was a group of friends that I was with all the time, and they were it was just easy to get, always around. It wasn't until, one of my friends had a really bad trip, and she called me, and she was in her garage and describing the craziest shit to me. And I was like, wow, is that me? Do I do this? And then her parents actually had an intervention with her. It kind of they wanted me to come be a part of the intervention, and I was like, I can't, because I'm part of the group that does this together. But that kind of, I guess in a way, her intervention kind of leaked over to me a little bit, where I was like, wow, people's family, they really care about her, and I care about her too, and people care about me, and I need to kind of, pull myself out of this. I didn't have anybody saying, hey, you need to get a hold of yourself. I was the kind of cocaine person who would get an 8 ball and do it in my room by myself. So a lot of people didn't know.
This is one of the problems with keeping people away from drugs like cocaine. Movies make cocaine seem fun. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, while it is undeniably dark, is a wild ride of a movie. But for a lot of people, like Heidi right here in this story, Being on cocaine just means sitting alone in a room trying to get your mind to stop racing at a million miles per hour.
Yeah, and that's kind of you're absolutely right about that. People don't understand sometimes it's more of a pleasure to sit in your room and stare at the wall rather than out in the club. Of course, I did that as well, but it got really bad when I was doing it by myself in my room.
Thankfully, Heidi found the strength to pull herself out of this situation and make a change. So I wanted to know who she told. Who was the first person she talked to about her feelings, and how did they react?
Carla, the other vocalist in my band, she and I, we became such best friends right off the bat when we met. And it was because she used to have an issue with it. And I used to have, I was having an issue when we became friends. And I told her about it, and she explained, some of her situations and her experiences to me. And we kind of, talking about it with her definitely helped normalize it and be like, okay, this is something that I can overcome easily. And I'm not saying it's an easy thing for most people, but when I had the push and the support of my bandmates, it became a lot easier, that's for sure. But I would say she was probably the first I talked to. And then I also talked to my little sister about it too, because I wanted her to kind of learn from my experience, I guess, in a way. I tried, and she was very just lent out a helping hand, and just always like, how are you, let's talk about this. And so I would say Carla and my sister.
Many of you listening may already be familiar with Butcher Babies, the band that Heidi and Carla front, but I wanted her to give us the backstory for everyone else.
I felt comfort because she was my best friend, but how we met was really interesting. I was in a cover band, and there were 5 girls in the band, and one of the girls was doing heroin, and we were like, well, we could do cocaine, but you can't do heroin. So we kicked her out of the band. And we put up a MySpace ad, and Carla, she answered the MySpace ad and came and tried out for the band, and she made it. And I was introducing her to the songs that we would do and the parts that each girl would take. And we spent a lot of time together in that respect. And with that connection and talking about our hopes and dreams of being in a big band someday and our love of heavy metal, I just felt like she was a kindred spirit. She was a lot like me, and I could open up to her about these things. And I think that has really resonated throughout our entire career. And we are so close, and we do know everything about each other. And when I slip up on anything, whether it's like a bad attitude or whatever, she's there to check me, and vice versa. And I think that starting our friendship with that type of honesty was really helpful for us in our journey together.
We've heard countless stories from artists who were struggling with addiction before they were popular, only to find that with notoriety came the ability to access anything they desired, which in turn only made their pre-existing problems worse. But Butcher Babies are a different story entirely. Together, Heidi and Carla were able to clean up their lives in the early days of the group, making it possible for the band to thrive without worries of falling into old behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's so funny because when Carla and when we, are together, we'll have, a glass of wine together, and that's easy. And we can talk about everything. And it's nice to have that camaraderie where it's just, we know that we don't do these things and we don't need them in our lives, and we will always have each other to back each other up in that. And I do feel grateful for that. It's been so long. It's been so long. I can't even imagine that coming up in like a conversation like, hey, let's do some cocaine. That would never. It's so weird to even think about.
Heidi is absolutely correct. The further along you get in recovery, the harder it is to recognize yourself before you got sober. But during those early tours, it wasn't so easy. Temptation was high and resistance was hard.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it is everywhere. And even still, people will offer it to us all the time. Carl and I were at, well, the band had just finished our set. We were in Manchester playing a show. One of the guys who ran the club was like, "Do you guys want to do some DMT? I'll take you guys to your place." Then, I'm like, we're like, no, this kind of stuff happens all the time. And, there are, of course, when we first started there, we're definitely, it's not as prevalent now. And especially a lot of people know that we don't do that. But in the beginning, you're right. It was a little bit more prevalent. People were, "Hey, you want to do this with us? Hey, let's get a rock star in here," and we did have to lean on each other to be like, "No, we're not going to do that. We have our voices to save. We don't even drink whiskey on the road because it hurts our throats, or wine on the road because it hurts our voices." So we're very, very particular in what we put in our bodies. And that, early on, of course, people were just like, "Here you go." But I think as time has gone on, I think that it's not cool in our industry to be a druggie. It's not cool to be blown out of your mind. It's not something like the sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing. It doesn't really exist as much as it used to. Even from what I've seen in the last, decade plus in this band, there has been a giant shift where now it's more like yoga and green tea. So, but I am grateful for that too. I'm grateful for that shift.
Speaking from experience, when you first start touring, there's a part of you that hopes to live the rock star dream. If you're somebody that partakes in drugs and alcohol, then you hope to have one of those nights you read about in The Dirt or saw in a VH1 Behind the Music episode. But if you're able and lucky enough to survive several years in music, your conversations and behaviors shift. You stop looking forward to the party after the show, and you just look forward to the hang, to being around your friends and talking about real life situations like insurance and how their kids are doing in school.
Yes. No, I know. And that's exactly, it's how it is now. And, I think a lot of that too is we're all kind of just getting older, and there are younger bands, and maybe I just don't know. Maybe I'm blind to it because I just don't see it, and people don't present it around me now. But I really think that in this industry, it's changed quite a bit. I think it's just it's more respectful to be a sober musician than a train wreck, for sure. I mean, I don't drink before shows. I don't. Yeah, to me, any sort of inebriation on stage, wouldn't be able to jump off boxes. How would I land a jump if I were even slightly drunk? Yeah, just my whole band, we play sober. And I'm grateful that everyone in my band is as good as they are when it comes to substances.
Knowing how well Heidi's recovery is going, I was curious to learn about any temptations or cravings she may experience in regards to her past behavior.
I think a craving, that's the hard part, is it rarely really leaves. Like like if I just think about it, I could taste cocaine in my mouth right now. I can taste how it feels in the back of my throat. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I want it. I have not been presented with it in a really long time. It has not been around me in a really, really long time. The friends that I surround myself with are all on the same page as I am. I'd say probably, I think the last time I was offered on tour even was like in 2015 or something like that, but not something I obviously partook in. Yeah, I mean, craving wise, like I said, I think that that's part of what you, an addict is. Like are, you always crave it, but the strength comes from not doing it. So even though I might crave it, I'm still not going to do it. But I think that that's kind of how it is with me, you know. I liked the smell of cocaine back in the day. That doesn't mean that it's going to ever be a part of my life again, because I don't like what it does to me.
That last part is so important because, as anyone in recovery will tell you, their brain still knows the way to get high. If you allow yourself to think about it, your brain will paint you a map to figure out how to get a fix. You know who to call, where to go, where to look, how much it'll cost, and how soon you can get it. But the key is playing it out, asking yourself what happens after. If you decide to drink or get high, then what? Is it worth it? And the answer most likely is no.
Well, and also, like I have friends that had the same experiences that I had. And I have friends that are freshly sober and try not to partake. And so, even if it comes up in like conversation, it's just an automatic nope, nope. Because I need to be that good friend for somebody else too. I need to be that good example for, the freshly sober friends that we may have.
One theme that comes up again and again in Heidi's story is the power of community. From the people that she knew early in life who didn't really have her best interest at heart, to finding Carla and the rest of the Butcher Babies and finding a place that felt like home in other people, Heidi has always relied on the community around her to support her, and now she's in a good place because of that. You get the sense that if someone did want to try and tempt her with drugs and alcohol, they wouldn't be able to get close. And even if they could...
Yeah, that they would know they wouldn't be able to, even if they tried. It's not worth it to me, and like I said at the beginning, where the band really did save me, there were other things too. Like I was anorexic, bulimic. I did lots of cocaine. I was a mess. And when this band started, in order for me to feel strong on stage, in order for my voice to be strong, in order to be able to perform at all, I had to kick everything. And so it wasn't just, one thing. It was a lot of bad habits to the door. And so I'm not about to open one of those doors and maybe let in a couple other demons with it. So it's just, my friends know that about me, and they know how to respect that, and they know how hard it was for me at the time.
If you've ever seen a promotional photo of Butcher Babies, then you've most likely seen Heidi and Carla looking like strong, badass warrior women, which is what they are. But all too often, a band with a name like Butcher Babies gets written off as being another heavy or tough act that's trying to teach other people to be tough and heavy, which is true to some extent. The band does want you to face your challenges and overcome the things that stand in your way, but the real message and purpose of Butcher Babies is so much more. It's so much bigger and more meaningful. It's something that no photo could possibly convey.
I traded all that in for lifting, so I'm just kidding. No, we won't kill anybody. I know that we have this rough exterior. People look at us and then they think like, what are they really about? And who are they for real? And, our music is a character, and we live lives just like everybody else. We go through all the same things that everyone else has. We have all the same nightmares, the same dreams, the same, we all do the same thing in the morning. And it's just, being, in Butcher Babies, and people, I've had, rumors circulating around that we were cokeheads on tour and all that stuff too. And I'm like, if people even understood how hard it was to kick that shit before we started touring, they would never say something like that. And I'm sure Carla will explain to you as well because she wrote a book about the problems, and her trials with it. And, we had to really kind of check ourselves, and like we said in the beginning, and I'm glad that people kind of look at us like we might kill somebody, but we're just nice chicks.
As my time with Heidi came to a close, I couldn't help asking her one last question. We don't believe in giving advice at High Notes. We feel that we cannot give you proper advice because we don't know your full story. We don't know where you come from. We don't know the motivating factors in your life, but we do know that the power of suggestion is strong. So I asked Heidi, when somebody comes to her and says, I've heard your story, I've read the books, I've heard the music, how can I change my life? When that happens, what will Heidi suggest?
It's really interesting you bring that up because when, Butcher Babies started and all the other stuff was going on in my life, I noticed that I was starting to become a little bit of a role model for other people. And so I forced myself and I realized that I needed to start living my life in a more positive way, even down to the language I use. And if people asked, what do I need to do to be more like Butcher Babies? I would probably say, just be nice. I don't know. Be nice to people. Smile. That's something that over the years, and you've seen our show, but back in the day, I was, angry. I was an angry kid on stage, and I think all my issues leading up to all my demons gave into that anger, and you could see it on my face on stage. And now you see me smile on stage, and I think that radiates throughout the entire show. I've often said, like, when I get on stage, I'm just a vessel of positive energy back and forth, and that's all I want to be. And so if I could, you say to somebody how to live life a little bit more positively, just to smile a little bit more, smile at other people. You'll get a smile back. I know it's hard with our masks on in this day and age, but it really does help. It puts me in a better mood, puts other people in a better mood, and all around just brings more kindness into your life. And so I would hope that that would be something that would come out of my mouth if someone asked me that.
If you only take one thing away from this episode of High Notes, I hope it's the need to surround yourself with people that are good for your soul. Picture yourself like a seed, and the people that you surround yourself with are the soil, water, and sunlight that will play roles in helping you develop. Now, the people that you choose will have an impact on how big you grow to be, whether you stay in the dirt as a seedling that could have been, or you flourish and become a gigantic tree. And that's what I want for you, to find your circle, to grow, and become the big, beautiful person you were meant to be. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please seek help. The entire High Notes team is here, and we can provide resources for you that will put you on the path to recovery. As always, for High Notes, my name is James Shotwell. The show is brought to you by Holics.com. Our producer is Landon Defever. Our programming consultant is Laura Haggard. The theme song was written by the band You, Me, and Everyone We Know, and the art was created by the great Nick Ferran. High Notes is available on all streaming platforms. If you would like to connect with us on social media, try Instagram and Twitter. Just search High Notes Pod. That's High Notes POD. We are always working on new episodes, so expect to hear from us soon. Until then, please take care of yourself. You deserve it.